Welcome to Season 2 of Heart of the Gulch. On today's episode, we sit down with Nashville's longest radio personality, Dolewite, program director at 101.1 The Beat. In today's Walk the Line episode, we get an inside look at the Beat Studios. And of course, if you like the content that we provide, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get on to the episode. We are in the heart of the Gulch. My name is Tony Mendoza, and today my guest, let me turn up my mic a little bit. Today my guest, man, one of the longest running radio personalities in Nashville, Tennessee, an advocate, a program director, an investor, a badass DJ, a Georgia Southern alumni.
Yes.
Yeah, man. So James Dolewite Raymer from 101 The Beat. What's going down?
What's good, man? Thank you for having me here.
Hey, man, I appreciate, man. It's a pinch me moment for me, bro, because when I moved here 3 years ago, I wasn't into country music.
Yeah.
And I'm still not really into country music. But so you got to think about it. I listen, and I don't really stream like that. Like we're talking off camera that being a Latino, I don't like spending money anywhere. So streaming services, I still use YouTube for free.
There you go.
So when I get on my car and I don't feel like playing YouTube or the Wi-Fi's down, first thing I'm listening to is The Beat.
I appreciate that, man. I need it. That's how I make my living.
Hey, man,
so
shoot, man. And there ain't nothing wrong with that, bro. All right, man. So look, we're going to start off early.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to start off to just tell me the first time you got into DJing.
So when I was in high school, I was kind of the kid that showed up with all the CDs everywhere. You know what I mean? If it was a basketball game at school or whatever, I was always kind of that kid. And I remember like probably my junior or senior year, I was listening to the radio station there in Atlanta where I grew up, and they had the DJs on there, and I was like, God, I would love to do that one day. And then it just seemed too big. It seemed like there's no way I can do that. I don't know what equipment they're using. I don't know any of this. And this is, you got to think this is 94, 95, 96. We're not just on the internet. Like, what kind of turntables do DJs use? You know what I mean?
You have those massive ones too. You got the big boys.
Yeah, I still got my techniques too.
Yeah, you do.
I'm still set up in my house right now. But so I thought it was too big of a thing. And so the goal then was just like, well, maybe I could be on the radio one day. And so I remember when I started touring colleges, I only applied to Georgia Southern and Georgia State. Georgia State's in Atlanta, Georgia Southern's in Statesboro, Georgia. And I went to the radio station at Georgia State first. And I remember we walked in and it was like crazy equipment. It was like lights everywhere. It was like a real radio station. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I don't know if this is a good start place for me. So we saw the radio studio at Georgia Southern, and it was like old, like it was the board had like knobs that you turn this way. It really looked like some 1960s stuff, and it probably was, to be honest with you. And I was like, this might be a better place for me to start here.
Yeah.
And as fate would have it, I apparently wasn't smart enough to get into Georgia State, so I didn't get in there anyway. I got into Georgia Southern, and I went.
I just got that sound. I ain't got none. I ain't got no booze, man. So, well, I'm noticing real quick, man, that everyone. So we had Brooke Taylor on earlier this week.
Okay.
And from the big 98.
Yeah.
And she kind of talked.
We work in the same building. We work for iHeart. Yeah.
That's what she said. Yeah. For iHeart. And she kind of told me the same story. When everyone starts to get into in college, that radio stations, for some weird reason she's younger, but no one ever has the budget in these places to make it like, all the fixing and make it look good.
No, ours was ugly.
Yeah.
It was ugly, but it also kind of gave me confidence, like, all right, well, if I screw up here, not that big of a deal. It ain't that big of a deal. If I screw up at that other place, there might be some problems, but here I can screw up a little bit. And there at the studio, they had I think they had Gemini turntables, but I learned quickly that techniques were the industry standard. So I went to college my first year, and I did radio. Our first show was from 3 to 7 a.m. On Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever you consider 3 to 7 a.m. at whatever phase your life in. That's
for me twilight hours, bro. I'm dead asleep, REM sleep.
Right, but so then that's when I linked up with my partner Scobby, who
rest in peace
to Scoob, and we started doing that show, and I remember I started getting records from record labels that would just send me free vinyl, and we didn't have turntables yet. So we saved up. We went home that summer and saved up after our freshman year for turntables, and we came back and we just hit the party scene. Like, we DJ'd the first day we got our turntables, somebody was like, "Hey, come DJ for us." And we were like, "All right." And we didn't even know what we were doing. But we did, and it just kind of took off from there. We soon became those guys on campus that just threw all the parties, DJ'd all the parties.
How big's the school? Just so I know, just off the top, how big is it?
I want to say then was probably 15, 16,000 students.
Okay,
now,
so decent though.
Yeah, now you're looking probably 20, 22, somewhere in there.
Oh man, see, I went to Texas A&M, and that thing is 60,000.
Yes.
Right? So you could there's sections. When you go to schools that are bigger, there's sections of people. So there's sections of DJs. I wasn't a DJ then. I was a DJ in 6th grade.
Right.
And now this is actually a quick question for you. So I was thinking about this. I was like, what kind do you prefer, vinyl? Do you prefer CD, or do you like the new age stuff where it's all, synced up into your computer or phone?
Any DJ, like I understand DJs that say they like the feel of vinyl, all of that. I get it. I never miss. I don't do clubs that much anymore. I do a spot date whenever I feel like it. Back in the day when I was doing 4 or 5 club nights a week, you couldn't have paid me enough to haul 13 crates of records in there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, once I think Serrato was 06, 07 when I started using it. And that changed everything. It changed everything in a good way. I use a Pioneer deck, a larger Pioneer deck. I think mine's a CD. What is it? X something. Okay,
so yeah, but a Pioneer is basically, for the folks that are watching this today that have no idea about just turntables and everything, right? So Audio Technicas would be considered, when people say Audio Technicas, they're thinking about the vinyls. When people, well, more or less.
Yeah, I use Technique 1200, which I believe is the same.
That's right.
Same company. I think Audio Technica, Panasonic, and
they all changed
were all the
in
same.
time.
They all,
yeah.
But the Technique 1200s were the industry standard. I still have those. I can hook them up to my computer and play vinyl. I can play. I still have my record collection. It never went anywhere.
Where is it going to go?
I could have sold it. I could have. I could have left it in a storage unit where it was for many years and just not paid. But I kept it, and we actually use the vinyl now. It's kind of like a decorative piece in my house. So there's like walls of vinyl in my wife and I's house, which is dope. When I think about
when I DJ'd a long time ago, you had the booklets of CDs, right?
Right.
And some weirdo let an 8th grader DJ a wedding. Weirdo.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing was, though, it was all CDs, and you remember the mixes, right? Where you have to write down the mix and which is each one in, or you're gonna have a little sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Now I see a lot of DJs, they just, it's all changing. And I mean, this is 30 years for you, 20 years for me. It's just changed so much. So
different. It's used to have to know, playing a club is simply playing the right song at the right time. To know where that is in 13 crates of records, you had to know, and you had to be able to go right to it.
And people aren't timed. And I'm wondering, is this one of your DJing pet peeves where people do not know when to play the songs at the right time?
That's always been more of a audience pet peeve for me, because if you're DJing at 11 o'clock and somebody comes up and is like, play the hottest record out right now, you're like, okay, I'm going to wait till 1. So why don't you just sit down,
for the audience.
Go have a couple drinks and I'll play it in 2 hours. You know what I mean? That was always more annoying to me, because most people that request songs always request something that you're going to play anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You're going to play it
sometime in the set.
It's sometime in the set. You're going to get to it. So just, I'm a professional. Let me do my job here and go enjoy yourself.
Speaking of your job, man, back when you were in college, right, and you met up with Scoob, I mean, talk to me about the dynamics between the two. So I'm guessing, because I know you guys were completely different, right, from one another, or more or less.
We actually had a lot in common. We were just really good. We always naturally, not just on air. It wasn't like any kind of shtick or anything like that.
Y'all were friends first.
We were friends first, and it was always. It was more like we liked to argue with each other, even though we knew the other one of us might have been right. And we were like that naturally. Yeah. And so we just did that on air.
It's like brothers, basically.
Yeah. We like to argue with each other just to get on the other one of us' nerves. Like that was just our dynamic. And so I knew Scoob for a minute. We lived down the hall from each other in our dorm. And he kept telling me like, hey, I'm going to come on your radio one night. I'm going to come on the radio with you one night. And it was like, 2:30 in the morning would come, and I would knock on his door, and he either wouldn't be there or wouldn't answer, one of the two. And then one night he finally came, and then it was like that. Like all it was.
You just feel
and
the
we didn't
chemistry.
even know each other that well at that point. It just worked, and we knew from both of us were like, this works. Let's just do this.
And that's hard to find. And for the people that have no idea, like for everybody that's watching this right now, y'all got to realize this. We are in the heart of the Gulch. I meet everybody within 5 minutes, and then we go straight into that.
Right.
So chemistry is a super real thing. You have to feed off one another.
Absolutely.
And that's what y'all did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember that first night he came in, Georgia Southern had a lot of people from his high school. And so this is our freshman year, probably spring. It was quarter system then. So it was spring quarter. And he, at 3:00 in the morning, was picking up the phones, calling everybody that he knew, like, hey, wake up. We're on the radio right now. Hey, wake up. We're on the radio right now. Tune in. And everybody would tune in. And it just kind of took off from there.
Man, so, I mean, tell me back then, what were you the most nervous about doing? So was there something you did or something that you were always, I mean, the early stages of being just on air, is it weird? What was weird about it? What were you nervous about?
So I think at first it was just kind of nerve wracking. I caught my with that technology in that space, I kind of caught my groove real quick. And then bringing Scoob on just amped up my confidence. And I think when you're younger, it's funny, man, when you're younger and you have nothing to lose, you have more confidence than you do when you're older and you're like, oh God, like, is this going to be okay? So now I feel like I'm like less self-confident now after 21 years of doing this than I was in year, 2 doing it.
Well, because you have that's the thing, the big R word, the responsibilities.
Yes.
So when you think about just being younger, right, inside that phase of life, you're really just thinking about, number one, who I can meet DJing,
right?
Where can I get into DJing, and then lastly, it's like, maybe I'll get paid, and if I want to get paid, maybe that happens, right?
Right. And so our goal was it was crazy because I think at first everybody, I'm going to be the biggest person on the planet, blah, blah, blah. But I think we matured quickly from that once we kind of learned the game a little bit. And I think our goal before we got out of college was like, let's find a job to where we just have to do this, to where I was working at like mailboxes, et cetera. I think Scoob was working at Verizon when we went back to Atlanta and stuff. And so the goal then was just to find a job that we could just pay all of our bills, doing radio, doing clubs, and that's it. That's all we wanted to do. And it happened.
Man, how tiring was that though? How tiring was actually, because when you first start off, you had the clubs.
I loved it. I loved it. There was a point when I was interning in Atlanta.
Where'd you intern?
At Hot 107.9 Radio 1 Company. And there was a point when I was interning in Atlanta. This was my daily schedule at that point. I would wake up, and I lived in Marietta. I'm from Clayton County, which is on the south side. I lived at the time in Marietta, which is on the north side. And I would drive at 6:30 a.m. from Marietta to Jonesboro, and I would work until 2:15 at mailboxes, et cetera. I'd get off and I would go to the radio station at that point. I would answer phones for the afternoon guy. And then I was on air. I was kind of the on-air intern for the night show from 6 to 10. And then after that, I would learn how to do all of the production, like producing commercials and imaging and all of that stuff. So that was Monday through Thursday. Friday, I would leave at 10, the radio station at 10, and I would go DJ at a spot called a World Bar that used to be in Buckhead, back when Buckhead had a bunch of like bars all in one place.
I don't remember that Buckhead. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so, and I would DJ there until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I would get back up at 8 and drive back to Jonesboro to work until 5. And then at 5, I would drive back to Statesboro, Georgia, which is 3 hours from Atlanta. I would DJ at the club in Statesboro where we went to college, and then I would turn right back around. I would get home probably 7 a.m. in the morning, and I would sleep all day on Sunday. And then on Sunday night, I had a shift from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. at night on the radio station. I would do that, wake back up, 6 a.m., started all over Monday. And that was my schedule for like a year.
Bro, that's crazy.
And I loved it though. It was honestly like a golden time in my life. Like I loved it.
Well, I mean, you have all that experience, and it's really kind of what we were talking about with Brooke. It's kind of the hard knocks.
Yeah.
It's really learning your path, your journey. And then when you're going through that journey, there's going to be a lot of learning lessons in there, right? Yeah. Because as we get older, we realize that, maybe we can wake up early and go, but we can't go out until, I can't even go out to 12 anymore. Right. I feel like a zombie if I stay out past 12.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way now. And this is weird because, up until I think I really started slowing down clubs, and I think I was, it was when I believe it was when we were pregnant with my daughter. I really started slowing down. I remember what happened. I got it down to one live broadcast every night, and then they wanted to take a hiatus from the radio, from the live broadcast. And I remember the first Saturday night that I sat home in 18, 19 years, I was like, oh my God, this is nice.
This is nice, right?
And then the next Saturday, I was like, God, I could get used to this. And then the third Saturday, I was like, I ain't never going back again. Like, I'm done here.
And it's something about those Sundays, right?
Yeah,
There's something about those CP Sundays where you're just like, man, I look forward to it.
Yeah. And so it was a totally different experience. And I think that's good that I got that all out beforehand. And then, now I have a kid, and I think that was good. Like, I don't know how I would have handled, being a father, like the father that I am, like really being there all the time and being out until 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I'm not built for that this stage of my life.
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah. You are built for that because you've done it, right?
Right.
So, but definitely, as time goes on, everything changes up.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about transitioning to Nashville.
Okay.
So when was that opportunity where you actually got to transition to the city? Because it was, like I said, you're one of the longest radio personalities in Nashville.
December 2001 is when we came. And so what happened was things were changing at the radio station I was at in Atlanta, and Scoob never got his internship there. He came up one day to fill out the paperwork to get the internship. The promotions director at the time went into labor that day, so he never got that internship yet. But what we would do is we would wait out the program director, and Scoob would sit in the parking lot. Literally, he would be in a car in the parking lot, and we would wait for the program director to leave, and he would leave till like 11 o'clock at night sometimes. It was wild.
And the program directors, for everyone that's watching, is kind of like the head honcho for the entire station right there.
Yeah. And so he wouldn't leave until like 11, and then Scoob would come up and we would work on our air check. So we did that for a couple months, and we finally got an air check together. And this is one of those things, if you're creative, sometimes when you nail it, you know it. Yeah. And we got this air check put together, and then we sent it to somebody to kind of make it really tight and nice. And when they sent it back, we were like, this is it. Like, this is going to get us a job. For the
people out there, let them know exactly what an air check is.
It's basically like, if you were going to do a radio show, give me 5 minutes of it. What would it sound like in 5 minutes? So you do a bunch of different, you do some liner reads, but you also do fun stuff and be like, hey, we're outrageous. Segments and stuff like that. So we put ours together, and I was like, this is going to get us a job somewhere. We sent out 4, and we got 2 job offers, one in Nashville and one in Macon, Georgia. And no disrespect to Macon, Georgia.
That's not too far from Atlanta, though, so that ain't that bad.
No, it's not bad at all. No disrespect to Macon, Georgia, but they offered us $17,500 to split. Nashville offered us $17,500 a year. That was my first radio contract, with $17,500 a year. Hold up. Yeah. And what's crazy is, we hadn't had steady money like that in so long that it started coming in, and we were like, we don't know what to do with this. What are we supposed to do with all this cash that we have? But Nashville was a lot cheaper back then too. So, but yeah, that's what got us to Nashville. It's just when we came, we visited. It seemed right. They offered us, a good enough living. And
it was slower though. I mean, because you're talking back then, you are seeing a totally different Nashville. Yes. And one thing I ask all my guests in the beginning, but like I said, you know how to conversate with somebody, so I don't have to do the same routine every day. So it's nice. But Nashville has turned into what I believe it was trying to be back then, right? So más o menos in a way, but it's just turned into a bigger beast. It's turned into a city that is now one of the nationally recognized hottest spots in Nashville. Yes. So when you moved here, you guys moved there, it was just basically what was it like? What was the first time?
It was
early 2000s.
I remember the first time we went, and so we did clubs in Atlanta and Buckhead and all over the city. And I remember the first time we went out here, I was like, what have we done? Where are we? Yeah. This is like, it reminded me of some of the places that we used to do in South Georgia, some of the clubs we used to do in South Georgia.
South Georgia is country.
South Georgia is country. But some of the others, they had high-end stuff. T Banks was doing First Fridays back then. And so there were these bits of what felt like home to us at that time.
Pockets
of it. Yeah. You had to know. We learned quick. you have to know this city. It's not just out there for you. You have to know where to go and what to do.
Still do though.
Yeah, in many instances you do, because I think people come here and they're just going to go to Lower Broadway. If you live here, you're never going there unless you absolutely have
unless
to.
You got friends, unless you really want to have just a night, a crazy night, a night that's overpriced. Really, that's what it is.
And it's just so many people, and it's just not something that is my vibe. But it was a lot slower, a lot different then. But I think it was the right fit for us coming from Statesboro and coming from Atlanta. It was kind of like dead in the middle of those two places, and it was a good landing spot for us. And then it just quickly it grew and it grew, and it was growing slower back then.
Yeah.
Now it's different.
I was just about to say that.
It was growing a lot slower up until probably about 2012, 2013, 2014.
2014 is when it was all changed.
Yeah, and now it's just like what happened here? I always joke with people that, like, if Scoob came back to life today, he would be like, where am I and what happened in Nashville? Because this ain't it. Like, man, where is that place? Like,
luckily though, it gave you guys that time.
Yeah.
It gave you that kind of long time to just get your feet wet, not only wet, but also start running in this game.
Yeah.
And as you guys matured, or as you matured, rest in peace to Scoob.
Yeah.
And as you matured, you started really being able to take on a full different role in your position, not even your position, in a new position.
And I think the difference now and the difference then was, I remember coming from Atlanta, you as a DJ, you would get opportunities to tour with anybody. They would book you in Vegas and all these other cities. And Nashville, we learned quick. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say quick. It took us a couple of years to learn the only way to make money here is to not only DJ the event, but for it to be your event, to take the money from the door and that's your money. That's the only way to really make money here then. I think it's changed now. I think there are a lot of DJs. Shout out my guy, Ry Yuri. I see him all over the country now. But it wasn't like that back then. Those opportunities weren't there then, where they are now. And I've only been sitting down for 5-6 years now. So it changed quick. You know what I mean?
It's, and also just how DJs and personalities, there's so many opportunities out there for people to make money in different ways now.
Yes.
Thankfully, because we have all these things, the people that are watching you right now are watching off YouTube.
Yeah, right.
That when YouTube first came out, it was just 280 pixel, 240 pixel, and it was just normal stuff.
You could watch old music videos on it, like you grew up with.
BET Uncensored in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah, shout out to BET Uncensored in the morning. But speaking of that, though, is that as times have changed, as people have changed, and as technology has grown, there's a lot more opportunities. And but also, and you can definitely understand this, is that with more opportunities to do things, you also have a lot of hoopla, a lot of mess. It's just the pond has gone so big with personalities. There's so many opportunities. You have a podcast.
Yes.
I have a podcast. Yes. Everyone has a podcast. Everyone thinks that their opinion, which they do, matter. But at the same time, not everyone can hold conversations, create topics, get the people. You know exactly. And I mean, just let's talk in radio sense, because we'll move on from there. But just in radio, talk about how challenging it is to find sponsorship, to have those conversations with clients. I mean, aka celebrities and others.
Yeah. So in radio, it's especially with iHeart, it's kind of set up for us because everything's there with this big corporation where they have a sales team that pitches sponsorships and pitches endorsements and things like that, which is great, except it runs so hot and cold. So sometimes you're making a ton of money one month, and then the next month they're like, hey, 2 of those canceled, they're taking a month off, or they're done.
And it affects you.
Yeah, it affects your bottom line.
I didn't know that.
So your income is like this. It's going up and down all the time. So that gets a little shaky sometimes. You know what I mean? Or
How do you keep that relationship steady? How do you keep a sponsor's relationship steady from a program?
A lot of these come from the corporate level. So it's not like I even have conversations with people. They're like, hey, we have this opportunity for you. Is this a good fit for you? If I say yes, it's a go. If I say, hey, like, that's not something I'm really like, I don't eat meat. So like they'll come to me all the time and be like, hey, I just had to refuse food all the time. So like they want you to promote their steak. And I'm like, I don't eat meat. So,
and you're honest. That's the thing that I think Nashville really got to understand about you guys, and especially you, is that your honesty, and you're able to advocate for others.
Yeah.
And then not only that, you're not afraid of saying that you don't know something, or that you just, that you don't feel comfortable talking about certain situations. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think I remember when I was coming up, when I was young, and there were people that were I was 21, 22, 23 years old in these buildings with people that have been doing this for a long time. They were like my idols growing up in high school, and they were like scared to tell people that they were turning 30. It was like a young man's game. And I remember I was like, I don't want to be that. I just remember that even then I was like, I'm not going to lie about my age, man. Like, I've been on air 21 years. If you grew up in Nashville, I'm not in my 20s. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, the math does not work there for me to be in my 20s or my 30s at this point. Like,
Shout out to getting older, though.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I really do. But I think there's a level of honesty there that you have to have. Like, yo, I'm 44 years old and I'm still doing this. I still enjoy this music. I still appreciate it for what it is. And I think as long as I'm not becoming the grumpy man, like this music isn't what it used to be anymore. Of course it's not. It's everything comes and is different.
In waves.
It's
all waves.
And everything is different. Like, I can appreciate, is this Generation Z? This is their music.
I don't know what generation they are, but vinyl records. They use vinyl records.
Yeah.
Now vinyl records are in, right? And that wave.
I got a lot of them. I hope they go up in price.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And so it's those waves you're talking about.
Yeah,
it just changes.
So I understand it and I can appreciate it. It doesn't mean that I sit around and listen to only that now. Like, you know what I mean? But I can appreciate it and I can listen to it and I do like it. I think there are a lot of other people that sit around and complain like, man, I don't know why they're talking about this. They're talking about the same stuff they were talking about when I was in high school and what I consider the golden era. You know what I mean? So I think being able to look at it through that lens, being able to accept myself as I'm not trying to come off as anything other than what I actually am, has definitely helped with the span of my career.
We were just talking about callers.
Yes.
Just a second ago. And so first of all, for the people that are listening that call into the radio, it's a little rare, but you can still get some awesome stuff. I think I got George Lopez tickets just by calling in the radio one day. And man, you guys don't play around. First of all, it takes forever to get to you. Yeah. Right. Because you do have a great audience. And then second of all, when you get to you, it's like, hey, it's Dolewite. Let me say what you need real quick. Yeah. You go really quick and you cut, end phone call, and then what did you say that you have to do to edit it?
So what happens is we try to make everything tight. So a lot of times in a phone conversation, as in any conversation, if I'm talking to you, there's going to be some pauses in between that. So you want to take all of those pauses out. We have to edit it in a machine called a Box Pro. So you'll call, I'll be like, 101, who is this? All right, let's play the game. We play the game. You win, blah, blah, blah. You won this. I have to say the name of what you actually won because those are also provided by sponsors and stuff like that. So you have to hit all the points. So I can't just say, hey, you won Beyonce tickets. I have to say, you won Beyonce tickets. That show's going down on July 15th at Nissan Stadium because...
It's like a computer, really.
Yeah, I have to say that. Yeah. Yes, I have to tell you that. And then, so our conversation, I say, hold on. And then I have like 2 songs to edit that call, to take out all the blank spaces, take out if there's something in there that just doesn't need to be in there. Radio is very... It's not like podcasting. Podcasting is long form conversation. Radio is you get to the point. And so you have to make that call. You have to shorten that call down. And I was just telling you that every now and again, sometimes you'll get to that call and it'll be like, and if the caller's still there, you have to redo the whole thing, which doesn't exactly sound.
Never goes the same.
It never goes the same. It's never as good as the first time. So that's, one of those things that we go through.
So what are the callers like? Have you ever had a caller call in pissed off from something that just happened? Maybe it just got cut off and you just have to edit it. You had to work with the caller and just be like, yo, maybe I can't do this.
Look, man, I've been doing this 21 years. Plenty of people have called me pissed off. You know what I mean? And my thing is I want to make them feel heard. If there's something that I did that I do feel bad about, I will apologize. If there's not, I will just be like, hey, I hear you. I understand. I'm sorry you feel that way. This is the best I can do. I think the harder things are when sometimes you'll have people that, you'll answer the phone and be like, hey, you're caller number 8, but I was looking for caller number 10, and they'll somehow mishear something, think that they won something, and then they're calling up your boss like, hey, I won on the beat, and I'm like, oh no, you have to
You have to do it from that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But how do you feel when you are operating on the radio during that rush hour, and how important? So there's 2 times that I listen to the radio the most in my life.
All right.
Number 1 is going to work.
Okay.
And back we were talking about the little car I got now. Back in the day when I rode for almost 10 years was a 1995 Chevy Tahoe.
Nice.
And the CD player didn't work, so radio was my baby. Yeah, and I love it. And shout out to everyone over there in San Antonio, Texas. So you got oh my goodness, I can't remember his name, man. Biggie Paul and oh man, I can't forget his name. Xavier the freaking Rican. Shout out to y'all out there. Anyway, so as I'm in that car, I'm listening to radio only 2 times in the morning,
right, in the
afternoon.
Yep.
And the morning, you gotta have that time. Have you ever done mornings?
I have not. We did mornings in college. That was it. Oh. We did nights when we got here, and then we did 10 years at night. And then we got that promotion in November of 2011. And then Scoob unfortunately passed away 3 months later in February 2012. And then I've been on afternoons since.
And also, it was also for kind of a switch too mentally, right? So it kind of actually helped you a little bit.
Yo, the craziest thing, I remember those first couple months before when Scoob and I were doing the show together. He was in a relationship at the time, and I was single, doing living life. I did. Yeah, living life. But it was weird. It felt empty. Like I would get off work at 7:00, and I would go home, and I'd be like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
If it wasn't a club night, it'd be like, What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to eat? Where am I supposed to go? Yep. Mm-hmm. What is this? And it was an adjustment going from being off every night at midnight to being off at 7 p.m., which was a big adjustment. Yeah,
and then also, like I said, everything. So as time's gone, right? Yeah. You start getting used to the slot, right? This afternoon slot. Yeah. And that afternoon slot, like I'm saying in the beginning, in the mornings, a lot of the best shows are in the morning. Yeah. And it's because you gotta wake up in the morning, so you gotta have that, I'm assuming, upbeat. Yeah. And then also now you have radio around 3:00 to 7:00. Yeah. Talk to me about the differences between those 2 time zones.
I think now post-pandemic, it's crazy. It used to be the later in the 4:00 hour, 4:30 to that hour between 4:30, hour and a half or so, and 6:00 were like your biggest hours. Morning drive is a little more spread out from
6:00 people driving to 9:00 people that are running late.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it used to be like that. Now afternoon, since post-pandemic, is different. Like 3, 4 people are leaving the office. From what I'm seeing with the numbers that we get, people are leaving the office a little bit earlier. And there's still a lot of people leaving at 5. I'm not discounting that at all, because if you've sat out here lately at 5:00, it's come back around a little bit.
Sir, you don't want to deal with that.
No, you don't want to deal with it. They're there, but there's also a larger audience now, I feel like, at 3 and 4:00 than there was pre-pandemic.
And talk about the numbers. So we're kind of talking about the numbers. We kind of mentioned it a second ago. So talk to me how the numbers work from program director. How do you view it?
So everything's done through Nielsen, who, they have their systems that they go, and we're all, hoping for the best. I think when I first started programming, numbers with Nielsen also, they're going to go up and down. And I think every time the numbers would go down when I first started being a programmer, I was like, I'm just it. I'm done. They're
gonna see it.
I'm done here.
Yeah. I got you.
Finished in this town. And now it's like, all right, they're dipping. They'll come back. Yeah, we're as long as if you have a good product, they're gonna come back when they dip a little, and they do, and it happens every time. And it's just they never dip too low, thank God, but they do go kind of up and down, and that's just the nature of the business. And you get used to it after a while, and you don't get anxious anymore, and you just like, all right.
And what about switching programs? So that's one thing me and Brooke talked about was actually, I didn't realize that, if they switch a program, it can happen sometimes like that. Yeah. And I remember my favorite morning show back in San Antonio, everything was smooth. And then to find out that, the program just completely switched over. Yeah. So, and it was called The Beat there too. Yeah. And so my question is, when programs do switch and people that listen to the radio and they realize that their, 10.1 is no longer there. Yeah. I mean, what happens? How's that situation like?
There's normally some pushback. I mean, obviously it hasn't happened since I've been at The Beat, but when I came to The Beat, when Scoob and I came here, it flipped over from a Christian station to us. And so, you know, we had some, especially with the topic matters that Scoob and I would bring up between 7 and midnight at the age of 23. You know, there were some disgruntled people, but now we've been there 21 years. We're not going anywhere. The numbers amazing. Are good. We're here. But yeah, like the formats do flip sometimes, and it's sad to see because, I mean, being in this business, you see people come and go quite a bit, you know, and that's tough.
Have to relocate.
And that's tough, man, because especially if you've been here for a long time, like, you know, you have to choose, like, do I want to stay here or do I want to continue in radio? Because there's only it's a handful of places you can work.
Which I'd assume, and let's talk about that. So, which I'd assume you've had opportunities to go in other markets.
We have. Scoob and I got a job offer that we were really considering. It was to do mornings in St. Louis at one point. And during that time, his great grandmother who helped raise him passed away, and we got offered the job. And he was just like, dude, like, I can't do this right now. I can't move right now. And I was like, cool, we're not going to take it. We'll get other opportunities. And it's crazy because a year after that, they blew out the morning show they did hire. A year after that, they flipped the format of the station. And so it was just like divine timing. Oh, man. So like I said, everything, the way I like to operate, especially here at the heart of the Gulch, because first of all, I don't ever know when there's going to be a bang. Right. I never know if a client has to switch anything, right? Yeah. So, yeah, you have to be ready and you just have to leave it up, right? Yeah. Leave it up to God and let him decide what's going to happen. In the end of the day, it's all going to work out in some way, form, or fashion. You're going to live. Exactly. Yeah. That's right. So, speaking, this is a random question too, but your voice, man, has anyone told you from a long time ago that you had a voice for what you do today? So, no. Like, what's crazy is I think when you listen to somebody long enough on the radio and then you hear them speak, you're like, you have a radio voice. No, I just have the voice that you've been listening to on the radio your whole life. You know what I mean? So I've been here 21 years. And that must freak you out too, though, right? When someone says, yo, I've been listening to you since 6th grade. Yeah, I'll tell you what really freaks me out is we used to go, so Scoob and I used to go to all the schools. Back before I was in programming, I had a, office job. We had all day to do whatever because we weren't on until 7 o'clock. We would go out to all the schools and speak to all the kids. And then, you fast forward 10 years and you'll meet like a girl in a club or whatever. She'll be like, yeah, you came to my middle school. And you're like, oh, okay. You might be a little young. Like, hold up. Yeah, you're like, but I mean, it happened because we've been here so long. We've been doing it so long. And you got to figure if I came to your school in 2001 when you were 13 years old, fast forward that to 2011, and we're in Karma or Meyer somewhere that we're DJing, you're 23 years old at that point. And, the 13-year-old is now 23. And it's just like, it was weird. It was always very weird. Like, all right, I need to, that's too much for me. It must be cool, though, because that says that you've been able to be a personality, someone in someone's life, someone whose opinions matter. And I think in Nashville, especially coming from South Texas, where it's predominantly only Hispanic, you move to Nashville where you realize the South is what they said it always been. And the thing is, and more. And I heard a conversation how you were outside of Nashville and people look at you differently. Yeah. And but I say this with love and just say that, your voice and, obviously you are white. That makes a big difference. And that makes you such a prominent figure in Nashville. I hope it does for other white people, especially because I think that especially here in the South, there's a lot of closed-minded thinking. And it's what all minorities, black people, especially in the South, have been screaming for hundreds of years. And I think we white people have a duty to listen to those voices. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't. And that needs to change vastly. But what it helps is that you are that advocate and you are that person that's able to really listen to both sides, give your opinion. And that's what I'm talking about. I know we went a little deep on that, but when that 23-year-old that would listen to you when she was 13, right? Your opinion mattered to them, and it still does, to the point where I'm sure you even get people that see you out and about
because we're going to talk a little bit about your investments right now too. That because I saw that video that you guys just released on it with Will.
Minor investments, yeah.
Yeah, it's still
Will's great,
really awesome.
Yeah.
And anyway, so just your voice matters, your opinion matters, and what it is it makes a big wave here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And one easy question to just think about is what's your favorite voice? What's your favorite personality voice?
Honestly, it's my wife's. Yeah. She's, it's weird because when I really honestly think about it, like where I've come since she's been in my life is just I think we judge men too much on, wealth and, he's got this and he's got that and he's got this. But where I've come, mentally and just the way I am able to look at the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would definitely be my wife. And then before that would definitely be Scoob. Really? The two people closest to me. Yeah.
Well, that's sick. I love that. I love that answer because I thought originally when I came up with the question, I was expecting a voice like Howard or a voice like Jim Nance, right? Like these voices that you hear when you're younger. But I think that's so awesome that you're able to see it that way.
But I think especially with Scoob, like growing up where I grew up in the South, South side of Atlanta. When you grow up white in the South, especially, but when you grow up white anywhere, you grow up with blinders on. You don't see the world the way other people see the world. And I remember Scoob and I had a couple arguments because I was defending my horrible stances that I had back then on, racism is over and all of these things. But when you stop and you let that down and you really become friends with somebody, and you can't become friends with somebody unless you hear them. And I was able to hear him. My thinking started to change. Mm-hmm. And then enter my wife. Same thing. You have to be in a relationship to be married. You have to hear that person, and to hear her struggles and her stories. It does change you. And if it doesn't, you're probably an asshole.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that. Yeah. Let's kind of move gears a little bit. So just you being on for so long, right? Okay. Being in radio, you must have had a lot of great events that you've gone to.
Yes.
You must have had amazing personalities that come by, whether it was a celebrity or whether it was just a person just calling in every Saturday or every day on the weekday, right? I mean, can you tell me what's your favorite interview you've ever done?
So I would say probably 50 Cent came through, and he's very, as you see him, what you see is what you get. I can't remember, to be honest. I don't think so. Maybe my height, I don't know, but I mean he was just very like, let's do this, like.
He was himself. Huh?
He was himself. Like, I mean, he was like, and he was smart. I mean, he was young back then too. Like, he was smart. He knew what he wanted to do, knew what he was going to do. He was still 50, but he was very, very easy to talk to. And I think you're grateful for that when you interview people for a long period of time. Within the first couple minutes, like,
it's gonna go.
This is gonna go. This is horrible. And there have been interviews that I've done with artists that I've never made it to air, and I've clicked stop, and I'm like, "Hey man, it's great meeting you." And they leave the building, and you're like, "I'm not gonna play that."
It happened to me, and I may cut this too, but it happened to me this week. Actually, it was an owner here in Nashville, and she was a sweetheart. But I swear, the moment I sat down in the seat, it was just like, okay.
It's just not everybody's cut out for it, man. And
and there's nothing wrong with that, though.
I had a great conversation, which now this doesn't age well, with Kanye West. But I remember this. College Dropout was like my favorite album back then. This was the summer after College Dropout. To everybody who's been in Nashville for a long time, he was in town doing Dancing in the District. It was $5 on the river to go see Kanye West, and it was packed out. It was an amazing night. And that was the college. But after College Dropout, he came in, and Scoob was out of town. I think Scoob was actually in Japan at the time. Scoob was out of town, and I did it by myself. And College Dropout was like my theme music to that year.
And it still is in sometimes.
So at first he sat down, and I could tell he didn't want to be here, and blah, blah, blah. So I got about 3 questions into it, and all of my questions were about just how much I loved College Dropout and how much I was quoting lyrics back to him, and then he got into it. And that was it. It was a great interview. It took me a minute though. It sounds like Kanye. It was like I had to rub his ego a little bit, and then it took off.
It really, but also it means that you listened.
Yeah.
And it means that you were able to, first of all, like I said, there's a lot of podcasts in this world. There's a lot of people that do this, right?
Right.
To your point earlier, you have to listen.
Yeah.
And you also have to be able to feed off the energy.
Yeah.
And that's what you were able to do. Yeah. And just to say that you interviewed those big guys, and remember, they went back to back that year.
Yeah.
And or in years
a couple years later. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, and then what about a favorite event? What's a favorite event you can? So
I remember one time we shout out DJ CeeLo. DJ CeeLo brought us in to his homecoming party and his birthday party. We did the Country Music Hall of Fame, which was dope. It was a beautiful event. But I think Scoob and I did an event up until he passed away called The Socialite, and it started at a spot called Karma, which is now. So Luke Bryan's is one big thing, right? But back then it was like split up with like, I think Tequila Cowboy and something else. And there were these different rooms, but Karma was one of the rooms, and you would go a side street off of 3rd Avenue and you would walk upstairs, and that was Karma. And we started it there, and it just took off, and it was one of the best times of my life. I mean, I was in my early 30s, and I was making real money for the first time in my life. And we just had a ball. I mean, we just had a ball it was like a 5-year span. We ended up moving it to Mai, which was one of these restaurants right here, the corner of 12th and Grundy.
Oh, it changed up now.
Yeah, I don't know what it is right now, but it used to be a club called Mai, and we did it there. And then we brought it back to 2nd Avenue when Mai shut down. To a spot called Scene, which I don't even know what that is anymore. But and you know, then it eventually kind of just phased out. But that time between Karma and Mai were by far probably my favorite years as a single person. We had a great time.
That's amazing, and I mean that goes to show you that everything changes too in Nashville.
Yeah.
I mean,
nothing's here for long. For sure.
No, it's not. For sure not. And then so I guess. Before we go on, so we have a segment in our show, and we're getting close onto the time there. We have a segment called Crowd Noise.
Okay.
And within Crowd Noise, we have people, you heard a little snippet of it, but we have people ask you questions. Okay. People that have listened to you, and I let them come and record their thoughts. So in a minute, we're going to come right back, and we're going to go play straight into Crowd Noise. You ready?
I love it.
All right, let's do it. My last question, we go into Crowd Noise. Nashville is what most people would assume is country music. And that is what Nashville is shown around the United States. Because even from Texas, I don't think Nashville's really necessarily country until you go to South Texas and you realize that there's Texas country, right? Anyways, what I'm saying is that being one of the longest running radio personalities in the city for a hip hop genre, I mean, talk to me about the struggles between having hip hop in a city that is, you know, a lot of it's country music.
I mean, those struggles are still here. I mean, you would think over 21 years they've gotten better, and in some instances they have, but it's not just country. It's really honestly race based. Like, it is a more like Atlanta, especially coming from Atlanta, which is a very known as a black city. There were people that were like, yeah, I'm not going to advertise on that station.
Really?
Yeah, and you're like, bro, you're missing out on money. The point of advertisement is to get the word out about your product to make you more money. And but it's still there, and especially like you know, the Lower Broadway area. If you don't turn a blind eye to it and you Google Lower Broadway Nashville racist, you're gonna see a lot of shit that you don't want to see, that you don't want to admit is true. It's there.
And that a lot of people are afraid to talk about it.
A lot of people are afraid to talk about it. And you know what's cool about Nashville, though, is so many people are coming to the city now.
Yes.
The mindset is starting to crack. And you got people that are like, what do you mean we got to have some diversity in here? So, what is this?
They're from California and Texas like me, man. So it's like they're used to, but like I'm saying, and we were talking about it earlier, the South, I didn't realize what the South was until I moved here. And even from Atlanta to here, I mean, it's crazy. So it's funny to say from that question that, you know, that was one of the major factors.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it was hard for us to find clubs to do events at, because they'd be like, what kind of genre is it? Hip hop? No.
And there's pockets here in this city too.
Yeah, that's still happening.
Just like in San Antonio, there's North Nashville, there's Nolensville Pike, and there's like where I live in the Nations, right? There's just pockets in the city, and it's kind of sad. I used to get my haircut over there in North Nashville, and it's really crazy how the city in a way is trying to close in on these pockets.
Yeah. And
they're really trying to make it all look like the Nations and the Gulch, when that's not the point of that area.
No, that's North Nashville. What I love about North Nashville is you starting to see this renaissance with black-owned businesses there. I mean, Slim and Husky started there. Shout out to Slim and Husky, planting everybody, man. Yeah, they're my guys. I had them on an episode of my podcast.
Hey man, I'm trying to get you so I can get them. So you know what I mean? All right, but anyway, so keep going.
And so and then you've got Minerva Avenue, which is owned by Robert Higgins and my guy AG and Joe Johnson. And there's just a bunch of Willie B's is out there, which is also a black-owned business. There's just a bunch of black-owned businesses on Buchanan Street.
Prince's, I believe, as well.
Prince's is in Antioch and
got it. Go ahead.
5th and Broadway. But yeah, that area is just. I love what's happening there, and I hope it continues to happen.
Absolutely.
And I love what Slim and Huskies did. That was so groundbreaking. I want to shout out to them. Was they went into a neighborhood where all of their advisors were like, don't go into that neighborhood. They hired people from that neighborhood, and it took off. So what they did was a blueprint of what can be done.
Oh my gosh, Slim and Huskies has so much respect in the community, and not only in the community, but also now going all over the state.
Yeah, all over. I think
everywhere. They just went to HBCU.
Yeah,
the other day.
They went to. I think they've got one opening at the Clark Atlanta University Center.
Man, shout out to Slim and Huskies, man.
They're killing it.
All right, so we got a question. It's called crowd noise. Let's do it real quick. So I don't want to hold you up for too long. You know what I mean? All right, let's do it.
Your favorite on-air interview?
Oh, so we went 50 Cent. So maybe I can give another one. Probably the Kanye that I mentioned was a good one. That was a good moment for me.
Unexpected good interview. How about that? Let's do an unexpected, like you didn't think it was going to go anywhere, and it turned out to be legit.
All right, I remember we had Avant come in, who's an R&B, he's an R&B singer in the early mid 2000s, and our PD at the time was like, "You guys are going to interview Avant?" And we were like, all right, like this is the night show. Like this dude is a slow R&B guy. Yeah. All right, we'll do it. And we did it. He was just like, he came in. He was just like, we were friends by the end of it. We were like, I would kick it with this guy. I remember after he left, we were like, yeah, we felt bad about that. Like he was such a good dude, he's a talented dude, and we were like, why were we dreading?
Because the music didn't match what you would thought the person was.
Right, maybe. And I remember, another funny 50 Cent story was before he really blew up. We went to Puerto Rico for this thing called Mix Show Power Summit. And so everybody's there. I mean,
everyone's gorgeous there.
I could tell you, I could do a whole podcast episode on that one weekend that we spent at Mix Show Power Summit.
Which you should probably.
Yeah, it was a really cool weekend. But I remember everybody down there was like 50 Cent was there, and they was like, "Oh, 50 Cent's here." But you gotta understand, like Lil Kim was over there. Eminem showed us 8 Mile in a private theater, sat 2 rows in front of us 2 months before it came out. Like that's like the star power of Mix Show Power Summit. It was crazy. But anyway, so 50 Cent's there, and we're like, why is everybody on this dude's dick? Like, what is going on? Like, why is everybody on 50's dick? Like he had no hits. Like it was just like he had How to Rob at the time. It was like a few years after How to Rob. We were like, what is going on? We got back home, and I promise you, the next week in the club was like the biggest record of all time ever. Yeah, and we're like, okay, we got that one wrong. Like,
he was next.
Yeah,
like he was next.
It was. We laughed about that. We laughed about that. Every time we brought up 50 Cent, we would laugh about that, like how wrong we were about 50 Cent. We should have gotten that picture. You know what I mean?
Me too with Kendrick Lamar, actually. Yeah. South by Southwest. The same exact situation where you said, well, actually it was smaller. The stage was taller than this chair. There was 5 people in the attendance. One of my best friends, Ivan, he wanted to go see this guy named Kendrick Lamar, and we stopped by where he was eating. We stopped by where he was playing, where he was buying shoes. And I'm looking at Ivan like, who the fuck is this guy that you want to just keep taking pictures of? And he got to like see us everywhere, so he could take pictures with us. It was just him riding solo. We went to the show. 5 people in there, and we count as 2 of them. He is putting on a show as if there was thousands.
Yeah.
Come to find out, Kendrick Lamar's Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
So I see what you mean.
You know, it's funny. I saw Big Crit perform. Shout out my guy Gennaro at the Southern Entertainment Awards. He had him a year or two before Big Crit really blew. And I remember I walked into the club that he was at, and it was everybody's just kind of standing around, you know, having drinks or whatever. And there's this guy performing on stage, and he was just giving it everything. And I'm like, who is this dude? Like, read the crowd, like, you know what I'm saying? But no, and I'm like, okay. I was like,
MGK was the same way for us too. Yeah. MGK back in the day.
You're like, who is this? Why is he trying so hard?
He was trying so hard, but now he turned into what he did. But all right.
But you know what? That inspired me though, because after that, I went to, whenever I would do a club and there'd be like 3 people there, I would be like, I would say on the mic, I know there's only 3 people here. We're going to party like this shit is crazy. Everybody's got shots on me. You know what I mean? Like, I would do stuff like that. Like,
oh man, that's the best. And I mean, I still think about that weekend because we met Schoolboy Q. And
yeah.
It was back that time when it was Mac
Miller.
When
South by Southwest was
South by Southwest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a different time. But all right, we got one more question here. Let's do this.
Dolewite, how do you use your voice to serve your community?
I like this one. I think, you know, through my podcast, and especially I try my best to show up in times that are needed. So, you know, if that means a police shooting, if that means, you know, city council is voting on something, or if that means when the teachers a couple years ago were trying to get a raise in pay, which they absolutely still deserve more than what we give them. It's, you know, hopefully, you know, moving the needle on somebody who might be on the
other side of the
either way. Yeah. Like, you know, come see it from this angle. That's what I hope to do.
Well, you got to let people know, and we're going to transition right now to the end of the show anyway, but 2023, you got to let people know, first of all, the podcast that you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, let them know real quick, just in case that they may not be aware of the podcast.
So the podcast is available right now. I've had great guests. It's not what you're used to hearing me on the radio. It's very introspective. We talk about serious topics, be it police brutality, race, spirituality, religion, meditation, mental health, climate change. A spectrum of all of those things that I try to hit with guests. I'm looking forward to this year because I am building a studio at my house right now, and I'm looking to revamp everything.
And what's it on? Just Dolewite? If I just look up
Dolewite? The Dolewite Podcast, it'll be there. Yeah, it's there. I'm 98 episodes in as of this morning, so we're getting there, and I'm looking forward to revamping it in the new studio, man. Like it'll be fully functional soon.
Yeah, I saw that little section you have inside the studio. It's going to be easier and a good flow.
Yes, it'll be a good flow, and I'm looking forward to that, and doing more video content with it too. So that's kind of what I'm just kind of releasing content right now that I've had kind of in the bag for a minute, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to have this thing built now. Like,
oh yeah,
and
so if there's anything I could say from doing that exact same thing right now, is that you got to just make sure whatever cameras you got, just can't operate at long periods of time.
Okay.
That's the only thing I'm learning. But outside of that, so what we do in the last part of the show is called crowd noise.
Okay.
Basically, what it is we go behind the scenes. So what I love about this show, In the Heart of the Gulch, is that I will find time when you have some time available to videotape you doing your thing. I'm just a fly on the wall.
Okay.
And then at the end of the show, at the end of our conversation, we transition into Walk the Line, where I get to film whatever you're doing, whatever you want to see, whether it's inside the studio, whether it's inside the podcast, where I'm just sitting back, just seeing you do your thing.
Okay.
So whatever you want to show these guys. But the way that we tee it off is you look straight into that camera right there.
All right.
You say your name and just say, now this is how I walk the line. And then we'll transition right here. So whenever you're ready, after the applause, in 3, 2.
Hey, it's Dolewite, and this is how I walk the line.
Brand new music, Jay Howell, right for me. Nashville sound for hip-hop and R&B. This is 101 The Beat. I know me, Dolewite. It is time for the Who Cares HipHop Report. Check out the website today, 1011thebeat.com. If you're headed to Cali this weekend for weekend 2 of Coachella and you bought those tickets hoping to see Frank Ocean, I got some bad news for you. That's not finna happen. Frank Ocean suffered an injury on festival grounds last weekend, and he's unable to perform this weekend. So again, if you're headed all the way to Cali for weekend to a Coachella and you wanted to see Frank Ocean, it's not gonna happen. Full story up on the website right now, 1011thebeat.com. Big 4 o'clock hour straight ahead. Another chance to win $1,000 on the way early inside of the 4 o'clock hour. The song you're listening up for, Summer Walker Playing Games. After that keyword drops, gonna play round 2 of Beat the White Man of Black Trivia, the Jill Scott tickets. Definitely lock in for all of that, and we'll kick off 10 joints in a row next with Bag Says Something on the way in less than 6 minutes. Don't move. For me, I mean, we've had Birdman, 50 Cent. 50 Cent was amazing on air. And I had Kanye West, the old Kanye, not the new guy, the old Kanye, back, I think that was like 04 or 05. And he had a show on the river for Dancing in the District, and it was, you could see Kanye for $5. It was $5, it was packed right outside on the river. It was a perfect event, it was amazing. But before the show, he came in here, and he was very reluctant at first, but I was a big fan of The College Dropout, and I started kind of quoting lyrics back to him, and he opened up immediately when he figured like, oh, this dude really does mess with my music. He opened up immediately, and then boom, it just went off. This is my office here. I don't spend much time in here at all anymore. Back in the day, back before the pandemic, pre-pandemic, I was in here, you know, all morning and then studio all afternoon for the show. So I come in here, man, I may open that door once a week at this point. I do most of my work, most of the office work, the program director stuff from home. And then I come in here in the afternoon. And but yeah, this has been my office since 2014. Board right here. There might be some inappropriate stuff written about the staff back in the day, but this Everybody Love Everybody, my partner Scoob actually wrote that, and I've been able to keep that. He passed away in 2012. I've been able to keep that unbothered and untouched up there for many years. So since 11 years now. So it's a school with a biblical person, not much of a religious person, but yeah, it's a special picture to me. And then another one for my wife, and then of course, you know, it wouldn't be right if I didn't have some kind of Atlanta Falcons paraphernalia in here, so I've got the...
Who would you like to see behind that desk?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Probably a little more introspective. I was supposed to have Representative Justin Jones on the week that he got expelled after the school shooting, and obviously he wasn't able to make it. But I would love to have him and Justin Pearson on as well. I think that would be dope if I could get them in here. Hey, it's Dolewite here, 1011 The Beat, right here in the studio. This is how I walk the line, and now you have to walk the line